Prasenjit, thank you very much for talking to us. My first question, if you were presented the same opportunity as the 8th of March, would you do anything differently?
No, I wouldn't. I would do it almost exactly the same way, because I asked a factual question about the record of the Nehru Gandhi family, and it is a question that is worth asking because Rahul Gandhi's only claim to leadership is his lineage. So we need to address the issue of whether the family has contributed to India's economic, political, social development in any conceivable way. And that is essentially why I asked the question. The question almost asked itself, given the sort of presentation that Rahul Gandhi made that day. He was talking about almost everything that India had achieved being a result of his party's or his family's leadership. And unfortunately, the reality is that everything good that has happened, all the reforms that have happened in India, were brought about by members of either the Congress party or other parties, but by people who were not members of that family. So he talked about the Green Revolution. The Green Revolution was something that involved massive transformations that were brought about by Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri ji. The economic reforms of 1991 were brought in by P.V. Narasimha Rao. And the fact that Gandhi family members were not able to bring important changes like this is something that we need to know about, we need to address, and that is why I asked the question.
But you see, you've seen Rahul Gandhi for about over a decade and a half in public life. But would you agree that he was a soft target? You knew that he would not be able to answer this question.
Well,
do you think? Would you agree?
There are many ways to answer the question. I thought he would be able to address the question as a politician, as somebody who's prepared to address the issues that India faces. So, given all of the, given all the assistance he has in the office of RG and the battery of staffers who are helping him to face the world, Shashi Tharoor and others, I would have thought that he is well prepared to address factual questions like this. I have to say I was surprised that he fumbled so much in attempting to answer a simple factual question.
Were you surprised?
I was, yeah.
Okay. Well, a lot of people are also saying that you probably asked that question to push your book, Asia Reborn. What would you say to that?
Well, I think any author wants his book to be read. You don't write a book to make money. You write a book to convince people of certain points of view. My book is the first comprehensive history of the whole of Asia in modern times, and it is a book that is really worth reading, and that is why I mention it wherever I go. It took 20 years of research, and I think if you read the book, there is much that you will learn. Those who have read it keep telling me that they are learning a lot, almost every second or third page. So obviously it is my goal wherever I go to tell people about the book and to have people read it. My book has the answers. It explains why it is that Japan, Korea, Taiwan are so far advanced economically and politically than the rest of Asia. Why Eastern India, the Andhra coast, the Tamil Nadu coast, the parts of India that were ruled by Britain the longest became the poorest parts of India, and how the Nehruvian model unfortunately continued too much of the legacy of the British system of administration, didn't bring in the sorts of reforms that might have enabled much more rapid industrialization, and we are still suffering the consequences. Apart from that, I think that Nehru made awful mistakes when negotiating with Jinnah. Jinnah had a very weak hand, but he was a trained lawyer. He had practiced law all his life. Nehru was an amateur. He had never practiced law. He didn't know how to negotiate. And he gave away everything. Jinnah had nothing to begin with, and yet when it came to Northwest Frontier Province, Congress had won in 1937 and 1946, and yet It is not in India today, it is in Pakistan. Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan fought till the bitter end to keep it in India. The Khan of Kalat wanted to accede to India, and yet Baluchistan is today in Pakistan. Gilgit was taken over by a British colonel, actually a British major, and handed to Pakistan 2 days after the accession of Kashmir. We have never protested this coup that was done by the British. And these are aspects of our history that really need to be known. And this is just India. My book is about the whole of Asia. Well, of course, even members of my family have had differing opinions. This is what democracy is all about. Some have said I was rude. Many hundreds and thousands have sent me congratulations and said, you've asked the question that we've all been wanting to ask.
Arnab loved you for that, anyway.
Well, Arnab, I'd never spoken to him before, but he was the first reporter to call me the following morning from India, and he did an instant interview. So my thanks to Arnab. He has helped to give my side of the story, which was being buried by the Congress machinery. I've been very impressed to see the machinery that the Congress party still has, even in opposition. It has a spectacular machinery in Lutyens, Delhi, and the machinery clearly starts with my college friend Shagorika Ghosh, who now says she's no friend of mine. That's fine. We acted in two plays together. We knew each other rather well. But on politics, criticism of her leader, Rahul Gandhi, or even a question to her leader, Rahul Gandhi, brings forth vitriol of unprecedented proportions from her. So let that lie. It's been an interesting time for 2 or 3 days. It was me against the Congress machinery, engaging in a Twitter storm. I think the Congress came out second or third best from that encounter, because the facts, unfortunately, speak for themselves. Well, I'd say it's a mixed record, and it's a record of substantial achievement in some areas, some disappointments. I would say that demonetization was probably a step too far, a political risk that need not have been taken.
Did you not speak in its favor at one point in time?
Well, I can tell you some of the positives that came from demonetization. Even today, if you look at the pace of tax revenue growth in the year to date this year, overall tax revenues are up 17%. This is one of the fastest growth rates of tax revenue anywhere in the world. If you look at tax revenue growth in Indonesia, for instance, another fast growing economy in Asia, it is abysmal. But India has 17% tax revenue growth. In the previous year as well, you had a spectacular performance in terms of tax revenue growth. So what's happened is basically that the tax base has been substantially widened, which was one of the purposes of the demonetization exercise. And demonetization was part of a trifecta of reforms. The VDIS scheme that ended in September 2016, just before demonetization came first, then demonetization followed by GST. The trifecta of these things will make it extremely difficult for people to evade tax. With regard to the GST, I would have preferred to see a single rate. A GST works best if there is a single rate, as you have in Singapore, Malaysia, the European Union. Most countries that have a VAT or a GST have a single rate. And I hope India will eventually move in that direction. But this is the second best solution. What India has is not the ideal, but it is better than what prevailed previously. When you talk about substantial positive change in India's economy over the long haul, every positive change has been brought about by a non-member of this family. So if we are going to have another member of that family putting his hand up and saying, please make me Prime Minister, as the first job I've ever had, then we need to address the issue of how that family has performed in its previous tenures as Prime Ministers. And it is a sad fact that more than half of the time since independence, we have had members of this family ruling us and doing a really bad job of it. In the period since they relinquished the Prime Ministership, India has done so much better.